Good morning. Good morning. All right.
Good morning, Rabbi. Good morning, Chavra.
Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's 3 Perakim Rambam. We are learning Hilchos Shchenim, the laws of neighbors, Perakim Dalid, Hey, and Vav, starting with Perek Revi with the 4th chapter. We're going to be learning about the relationship and responsibility from people that jointly own a house and a second story, as well as land and trees, as we will see. This chapter has 11 halachas, beginning with halacha aleph. Says the Rambam, two people, they own a house in the way that Reuven, let's say, owns the ground story, Shimon owns the second story. Now, if the nafal koisel mikosli habayis, if any of the walls of the house collapse, the person that lives on the second story or in the attic or on the, does not have to pay for any of the expenditure needed to rebuild that wall. Interestingly, we don't say he benefits from it. He's living on top of it. We don't say that. The responsibility is fully, that's the rule of the person who owns the house. Avol, now, the guy in the roof, you understand, doesn't pay, but he forces him to build it, because how can he have a second story if you don't have a proper first story? And the other way around, if the wall of the second story collapses, of course, only the second story guy has to pay for it. But the guy that's living downstairs doesn't have even a say. He cannot force him to build it, because it won't change his home. Now, the ceiling, so no, the wall, depending what part. The ceiling really has 2 parts. There's the ceiling, and then there's the plaster on top. The plaster on top becomes the floor of the second story. That is jointly owned. So if that collapses, the ceiling, that which is facing the downstairs, has to be paid solely only by the guy that lives downstairs. But the plaster, upon which you lay the floor, that, and he's the one that has to pay for it. Halacha base. Now, both collapse, meaning both the house and the second story. So if the question is, who does these materials belong to? They divide it. I mean, we're speaking obviously that the second story and the first story had the same height. If only some of the stones broke. Now, everything has value. The broken stones has value. The wholesome stones have even more value. So, which stones are more likely to have been broken? Whether they are the stones of the house, whether they are the stones of the second story, that presumption based on what it appears is something that you can really estimate. By studying how the wall fell, you can know, you can see, you can extrapolate which were the stones that broke, meaning that Rambam gives 2 ways. If the top part fell on the bottom part and crushed it, right? That's the bottom stones are broken. But if the bottom wall slipped out and the top one fell and crushed, and that which came from higher was the one that crushed. And you can see that if you know how to look at a collapsed building. If people there are not capable of making that estimation, so then you take whatever you have and you divide it equally. So the wholesome stones are divided half-half, and the ones that are broken are divided half and half. Omar bal aliyah bal bayis. Again, this is in the case of halacha base. Everything fell. The whole thing fell. And so the guy in the second story, don't forget, he cannot live there without a first story. So he's telling the guy downstairs, listen, live nice habayis. You got to do your part for me to be able to build my part. Kadesh yivna aliyasi al gabov, and the guy downstairs right now doesn't want. So what's the halacha? What do you do? The guy that was living upstairs, out of pocket, he has no option. He will build the downstairs, but since he built it, he lives in it. The Yoshev until the guy downstairs compensates him for everything that he spent. Now he has money. If he wants, he doesn't even have to want later. But the point is that he was in the right of demanding for the downstairs to have been built. And therefore, he can take these measures if the balabayas of downstairs did not yet do it. Right, none of them are able to rebuild for whatever reason, so they both made peace with that. So now there's a new question: how do you divide the land? And what's amazing in halacha is that we don't say the land 50-50, not that way. Baal Hualiyah noitel only a shlish of the karka. These are the rules. Baal Habayis takes 2 shlishim. Because at the end of the day, you're living in the air. So there's a big value in the ground story as far halachic value in the ownership of the land. Amazing. Halachei. So then so to rebuild it as it was is a non-issue. Question is now, what happens if you want to make a change? So the Rambam is going to write a halacha that will become inverted, mamish 180 when it comes to the down story, to the upper story, all based on the same logic. Same logic expressed in 2 opposite directions. So if they want to make a change in the walls, meaning by making them stronger, by making them wider, more than how they were, so that will be to the advantage of the guy of the second story. He cannot stop it. But if the guy that lives downstairs wants to minimize the width or to somehow make them not as strong, for example, how would that happen? They were made out of stones, and instead of building them back out of stones, he wants to build it out of bricks. Then ain't shaymin like, because the guy in the second story needs a good foundation. If he wants to change the ceiling, whatever it was before, he wants to put in there heavier, stronger beams. Then again, shaymin like. And another example is that if he wants to add windows, now adding windows might beautify, you have more natural light downstairs, but the more windows you add, the weaker the building is. So if he wants to add windows, or if he wants to make the height of the house taller, the height of the house taller means a few things. First of all, it means that the guy in the second story has to go up another couple of steps. Second of all, the height of the second story means that since if you're leaving the same width of the walls, the taller they are, the more vulnerable the wall is. So there's a 2 negative that the guy in the top can say, I don't want that to happen. Ain't shaymin. But in the opposite, which means the walls downstairs will be sturdier, or if he wants to diminish the height of the house, then you listen to him, which is interesting. Like one could have argued maybe the guy Dafka wants to have the view and he wants it to be 13 feet off the ground. It doesn't work that way.
And on supporting beam, what's the big deal?
Huh?
And on supporting beam, what's the big deal with the window?
I'll show you this. Now, let's go everything in the opposite. So if he's building it as it was, there's nothing to talk about. That's his right. Now, if he wants to make a deviation in the walls, the Rambam is going to give all of the examples again in the opposite. If laharchiv, he wants to make his walls wider, and or lachazek, ain't shaymin like, because the heavier the second story walls will be, then the more pressure it puts downstairs. Likely that the downstairs will last for a less amount of time. If he wants to make it lamayrosim, yes, shaymin like. Similarly, the beams, right, of the ceiling, you're making them lighter, but if he wants to make them heavier, then ain't shaymin. Also, if he wants to add windows, that's good. The more windows he adds, the less his walls weigh, the less pressure are downstairs. If he wants to make the whole story, second story, shorter, shaymin. Then ain't shaymin. Right, the beams of the ceiling are sinking. In other words, what happened here is that the ceiling sunk into the air of the house. Nothing collapsed, but it's coming down. So like this. Look at the halacha. If it's so low that the downstairs, I don't care how much height you started off with. The guy says, I wanted to have the 13 feet or the 15 feet or the 8 feet. Forget about that. Up to 10 tfachim. If it goes within 10 tfachim, you cannot live in a house that is less than 10 tfachim. Now, how you could live in a house of 10 tfachim? Beyond me. For 10 tfachim, we're talking about 40 inches, maybe a bit less. So if it goes in there, then soiser obain. No breda. However, amazing. If it didn't go that low, why? Because when you are refurbishing the house, you got to move out. The Baal Aliyah says, no, my apartment is great. I got my, you have 10 tefachim. Not, I'll pay for you. I'll pay for you moving out. I'll pay for your new place temporarily. The guy upstairs, the nicer, compassionate Hasidic neighbor is telling him, I don't want to be bothered to go from place to place. It's a pick your neighbors carefully, my friends, if you could. Now, if when they made this partnership, they clearly made the following agreement that this is the ideal concept, but you have to make a stipulation. You want to have your ceiling in your house tall enough that a person of average height that has on his head a ordinary size peckle, whatever that meant then, that you should be able to walk in there and stand, not only your head, like today they say your hat should not hit the ceiling, the spudik, whatever people would carry. You should be able to stand up and have things on your head without bumping into the ceiling, right? Then ain't a soisa. That's the right stipulation. In other words, the only time the guy upstairs says, you downstairs neighbor don't have the right to kick me out to fix, right? Is if it goes lower than that. But as long as you can stand with that, but then it's good. If the only way doing, you have to bend. Once you have to bend your head, because they made such an agreement. It's almost like that Rambam is telling you that since we now know the default halacha, again, I know that we learned a lot that Rambam keeps on repeating that if you live in a makom and that's the norm when it comes to monetary things, you follow that. But it's good to make these stipulations because halacha considers a house, dalet by dalet. Then how do you live in a dalet by dalet? I don't know, 6 feet like the Rebbeinu Shalom and 10 tefachim.
Probably people used to just come to sleep.
People used to just come to sleep. Many people today, you only just come to sleep. Never. If you have to shalom bayis is not good. What do? You come to sleep. Then you're busy the whole time. Allah ches. All right. Beis Habad. Moving on. Beis Habad. Shuhu banui ba'oivi hahar. Diginas acher al gabov. So I know that Kaven is now in Atzilus, but I have the same Rambam. So there's a great picture that I wish I can share of, you have to just now imagine, so there's like a hill and there is a Beis Habad that's built into the hill and there's earth on top of it and someone has a gina. So there's two owners, the Beis Habad and the gina on top. And what happened here is similarly, the top of this entire olive press, the top of this Beis Habad became open. Became open meaning that if the ceiling collapses, what happens? You know what I'm saying? You have a garden. You want to have your garden, let's say, is at 20 feet by 20 feet. You lost 4 tefachim. Why did you lose 4 tefachim? Because the whole thing caved in. You know what you get to do? Simple. The guy doesn't lose anything. The gina, it's the Beis Habad is meshubed to make sure there's earth on top for the guy to plant the stuff. If I'm in the Beis Habad. So if it fell in, you move into now. He's saying this by a Beis Habad because the floors were made out of sand and the materials did not take up all the space. There's room downstairs. Now, is it convenient for the guy upstairs to plant some on top and some on the bottom? No, but he has the right to that land. So like it forces him until he builds proper supports, right? That's going to support the ceiling. And now, once the base Chabad guy, it's like we had in the house, once he fixed his roof, his ceiling, you know what? The one thing that he doesn't have to do is he doesn't have to put earth on top. That's already v'yisaken ha'elyon karka ginos. Like in the two stories, the downstairs guy has to do the ceiling, but the plaster on top is already from the Baal Aliyah. And then v'yizar kol ginos. Halachanai. Shtei ginoy zu al gabazu. You have two gardens, one on top of the other. V'hayorik bin tayim, and people plant vegetables in between them. What do I mean in between? Again, you need a picture. Whenever you have two levels of you have a mountain, and people do it the whole time over here, they level it. So you have a leveled earth, and then because you leveled the incline, now you have a straight wall of earth. Then you have another level. It's like big steps. And who gets to plant what where? You understand? Halacha says, which is amazing, you don't go 50-50. Because if I own this one and you own that one, and we can still planting it mamish in a right angle, you can plant vegetables in there. It's not like, well, if it's 2 feet tall, the guy in the bottom gets the bottom foot. Halacha doesn't say that. Listen to what the halacha is. Anything that were to be planted in that wall, close enough to the top, that the owner of the top, while on his property, needs to extend his hand down and not grab onto the leaves, which is easier. He has to be able to grab the root of what's planted there and to uproot it. That is his. That area is his. The vegetables that grow there belong to him. That's part of the karka ha'elyon. Harehu shaloi. Now, there comes a point where you can grab it only if you really strain yourself to go down. That doesn't count. So you have to strain without showing that you're straining. I don't know how you measure this. And everything else belongs to the tachton. Mamash like Tata Govan. They dominate. You have to be very close to the Elyon to be part of the Elyon. Everything else is the gravity. Everything else belongs to the tachton. Now, I want you to know, in the Gemara, there's a suffix about what happens if you could grab, but only the leaves that are protruding outwards and not the roots. So since there's a suffix, if you went and you grabbed out the vegetables by the leaves, but you were unable to touch while standing on your property, I don't know if you're standing, if you can be laying on your belly. However, everyone has different ways of measuring it. But now, unlike the following, which is Aval Ilan Ho'emed Al HaMetzer, Mamish on a boundary, trees on a boundary, since the Iker is on the boundary, there we say, in other words, by the vegetables, do we follow the Iker? Yeah, but if you follow the leaves, at least there is enough of a suffix of Hametz Mechaver Olavarayim. By a tree, you only follow the Iker. If the Iker is 50-50, I don't care where the branches are, where the leaves are, where the petals are, you go after the Iker. Okay.
It doesn't matter which side, meaning in the trees.
Sure.
It doesn't say you have to take from your side, it's just that you get 50%.
Okay, so then it's just verbalizing very good. You don't say that each one gets that which grows on their property. You don't say that. Because it could be that because of the sunshine or because of whatever, that there's more trees on one side than the other. The rules are chalkim the peraisa, because since the ikid is 50-50, so accordingly goes the fruits. Halachiyot. Shatav nor zeisov. Listen to this halacha. This is halacha that's amazing. So you have an olive tree, and a river came, and it washed out, when there's a mudslide, your olive tree. Not only did it take it away from you, but the river, the Chutz Pinyak, planted it in your neighbor. It's not laying. So the original guy says, hello, that tree belongs to me. Why? Because of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Uprooting trees, maybe we're speaking only about the olive trees, maybe old trees. We don't uproot trees, particularly in the Holy Land. Which is amazing. I want you to know that means not just Yamdu b'Mekayman. It belongs now al pi Torah to the new guy. How do you make these rivers work? I don't know. People are trying to figure that out. The river came. There's one exception. But if the river was so strong that when it uprooted the tree, Not only did it uproot the tree, but it even took out a big clod of earth with the tree. Now you have to understand something, that Bekitzer, we learned this when we learned Rambam, and it's very practical today for people to plant trees, especially since Arla is noyeg even b'chutz la'aretz. When you planted a tree 2 years ago and you replanted it now, everyone asks the question, from when do you begin counting the Shnas Arla? Aside of the fact that you have to know how to count it. It's not the way you think. You planted it today, you count 3 years. It's not that way. So it has to do with if you uprooted it with the gush afar, so then you don't begin again. So here, the Rambam says like this, that if it went with the gush, for the first 3 years, that the new owner, the tree belongs to the new guy. That's the halach. But he's benefiting by the fact that he can have the fruits because the gush was also donated to him, maybe against the will of, without the consent of, but it came from the neighbor. So and so for those first 3 years, he also gets, but he only gets half. You understand? Because at least he can tell him, without my gush, the tree is yours, you would not be able to eat. Mitzat Sheini, the guy says, very nice, thank you for your donation, but it's grown on my property. So that's the machloika. So you say achloik. And like we said, the imla nekro b'gushayan. So then hakol leval hakarka miyad. Now hold on. Just want to ask a question. Like, what was also bahana? Like, if it didn't go with the gush, so you're saying the arla din starts over again, which it does. What do you mean hakol leval hakarka? Nothing. It's not true. The fruits are arla. The trees belong. You can have hana from a tree during the first 3 years. I'm not saying that we should uproot it. What I'm saying is, that if the guy wants to take now this, it's ironic because why did the Chazal give it to the new guy? Because of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. We don't want to uproot trees. So you say it belongs to the current place. Now that you said that, if that guy will uproot it because he wants firewood, we don't tell him, if you're uprooting it anyways, you can argue. So there's no Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, so let it go back to the original. We don't say that. Since we said it's from the new guy, that's it. Now, hakor l'bal hakarka miyad. And the final halacha in this chapter, halacha yudal. Kayoytze boy. We'll see soon exactly what's the similarity in a moment. That hamoicher zeisav le'etzim. A person sells his olive trees, they should be used for wood. In other words, I have a field, I have an olive tree, and when I'm telling you I'm selling it to you for the wood, what I'm basically saying is you're uprooting it. You're taking the wood out. Leaving it here for fruit, which is taking nourishment out of the ground, is not what I sold you. Now, if befeira, she told him to cut it right away, and the guy didn't, so then however, even though he sold him the tree, which means that if the tree were to die, the guy has no more rights here. But if I allowed him to cut it off when the buyer pleases, then wow. In other words, that's the meaning. I'm selling it to you for wood, but you can cut it when you want. Machar stam, he didn't specify neither lokutz miyad, nor to tell him you can cut it when you want. So im also pachais midivias lasa chutz hahoitzam, that if the amount of olives that it produced was less than a fourth of a kav for each saw, and when we're speaking about the quarter of a kav, don't forget that you also have to pay workers to harvest. So after you deducted, you have that little left. Then we say, in other words, let me say it like this. You didn't say lokutz miyad, you didn't say you have time. The Baal Hasada theoretically should have at least some ownership, but when it's a very small amount, mechila. If you remember when we learned the dinam of Oina, we had a similar concept. We're not allowed to do any Oina, but if you do a pachas mishtos, mechila. So it's not clear, but since it's so little, he was Michael. Also the via l'sam. So or more, that's the yachloika. The yachloika, the similarly is this in halacha yud. You had a case where once the tree went there with the gush for the first 3 years, yachloika. That's what the Rambam means over here. Similarly, you have sometimes where the tree belongs to one, the earth belongs to the other, and the consequence halachically will be that they divide the produce. Beautiful. Next chapter today, the second chapter today, Perek Chamishi. is going to speak about the nature of the relationship of people that have homes in a shared chatzir, and also the relationship of shchenim that people with chatzeders have with each other when they share a mavoi, the people that are still in the sugyas of Eruvin, right? The mitzias, you don't have to, we're not learning Hilchos Eruvin, don't get nervous, but a lot of the scenarios are very clear once we have the schus to go through together, Mishnayos or Gemarim of Eruvin. So let's begin. This chapter has 16 halachas, and let's begin with the following. Chatzar HaShutfim. Chatzar HaShutfim means we're speaking about shchenim, we're speaking about the way people had homes. It was to having your own yard is a chiddush. The way people used to live then is that many homes would open up to one chatzar, and they push it legally. They were shutfim in that chatzar. So first of all, kol echad mehem koifes chaveri lasa islam. If that chatzar needs to have a gatekeeper's house, either it never had one and now they decide we're going to build it, or whatever was there was broke, that's a need of the chatzar. And no shutef can say, medafas nicht. And by the way, that's such a good cop-out, right? In other words, if you want it, gesund to hate. I'm giving up my part of the chutzah. You're taking up 3 feet. I'm meichel, but you pay for it. No, something that the Torah says is a need of the chutzah, that everyone has to jointly pay. So that goes to a beisha. That goes to a door. These are the words. You have to know how to apply it. You know, there has to be a great need. Great need, everyone has to pay. Even if it's not a great need, if that's the minig, you cannot argue the whole thing is not necessary. The ganze Olam Haza, Rabbi Zajac, it's a gewaltige story, and Rabbi Weinberg, they went fundraising. And they came to a place somewhere in Africa for one night. And they had that, and they went to shul, they davened ma'ariv, everyone left. So Rabbi Zajac tells Rabbi Weinberg, we're only here for one night. Why do we have to waste money, kodesh money, hegdish? Let's sleep over here. And he told them, we're only here, garnish. Rabbi Weinberg says the whole life is only a moment. Elamo, when we're here, let's enjoy it. We're getting a hotel. That was, in other words, if that's the minute, you go to a hotel, don't muchazech over here. Now, sharat dvarim, which means going tzir v'kir. You have paintings, you have designs. Guy wants to put art in the chutzah. Very nice. Everyone has to pay. And again, I would say depends where you live. You know, some Mishra going, that's the norm. Also, now another rule: when someone does something on their own, you know, don't ask, do and then ask. And here's the klal: if somehow the other guy that was not even dreaming of paying revealed, spill the beans, that what? Noyachle means he appreciates, then he has to pay. Megalgan and all of us, Hakoil, of course, does not mean everything. We had this already yesterday. Hakoil means his share.
How do you measure no?
I don't know. But you have to be careful. The guy that's claiming I don't need it is going to spend all of his energy in his life making an effort to show that he doesn't need it. And he'll save his whole $10.
Home association, and they decide what they want to spend their money on and whatnot. It represents everybody. You can't opt out.
Okay, so then he's saying that the rule, it's like the legal rules is that the rules. When you buy a condo, there's a system how things work. And you have a vote, but if the roiv, then you have to. We're not saying this at all over here. Here we're saying that it has to be something. If it's something tzedek gadol, everyone has to pay. If it's not a tzedek gadol, if you appreciate, and for that you have to be megalit. Okay. You can just imagine all of the machlekes and that go on with this. Gavaldik.
First of all, no.
Huh?
First of all, no. That's the at the beginning.
Yeah, but I'm saying this is such a good shul, my mikvah machlekes. Tzedek gadol. I can see from the people. That's it.
Even paints the building makes it look nice.
That's right. No. It looks good enough. It's not good. It's not a tzedek gadol. That they like the word gadol. They're gonna stick onto the gedolim here like without an end. If you own a house in another courtyard, so now you have another nuance. You have property there, but you don't live there. So here, if that other courtyard begins to do stuff, is there a point where you can claim I own a house here, but since I don't live there, I should not have to participate? The delis, it's a door. No, I don't care if you live there or not. the neged, right? The door bolt, the manol, the lock, anything needed to lock it up. Avol b'shana dvarim, and let me add, even Seirach Gadol, a mishab de moisa. But then mishab de moisa al hakoil means whatever we said before. In Allah Alaf, Allah Gimel. Another thing, what happens? One guy decides he's moving an animal in a behema, he's moving a mill. And Bachal, we learned dinim of mills, they make everything tremble. Or he decides, someone told me that there is even laws around here in LA that you can't raise chickens, which is a nest. They're very noisy. I don't know if it's true or not. Yeah, because one guy decides that's what I'm doing. So what do? The rule is for these three, they have the right to stop him. In the case, which is the norm, in that scenario, with one exception. There's one thing that even when you live in a place that ain't derech everyone to have it, if one guy decides, everyone has to give into it, and that is doing laundry. Now, it doesn't mean that other people have to pay for that. Of course not, unless they're megala, certainly if they use it. But we're speaking about doing laundry because of modesty. And the mile of having a kivisa in your own chatzar, it affords people a greater amount of modesty, and that's something that anyone can bring upon the other. In halacha, doing laundry is like a big thing. Doing laundry prior to the washing machine was a big thing. If you take a look at your washing machine, it's really doing a lot of work. Okay, right. Now let's move further. As we learned in Eruvin, so many chatzeros would open up into a mavoi, and we have generally two types of mavois. We're going to just use the word mavoi. There's a mavoi that goes through and through, that's open on both ends, which means that it's much less private, which means that people from the Rishus Harabim use it to go from here to there. Then you have a mavoi that's einoi mefulish. It doesn't go through and through, which means it's a more private area. That is solely for the bnei hachatzeros. So here we go. She'einoi mefulish, the private one, kol bnei hamavoi, similarly, ma'akven zeh, sheloi lihishtamesh b'mavoi, ela b'dvarim, again, shederech bnei hamadina lihishtamesh b'hem hamavois. It's very interesting. The Rambam here doesn't give any other specifics other. You got to follow the local custom. The Rambam did not write that by Chatzeros. Halachei. That he did not abide by the rule that we learned in Halacha Gimel, and he unilaterally brought an animal there, or someone brought a mill there. Now, obviously, we learned Halacha Gimel. Any one of the people in the Chatzar could have made a protest. No one did as of yet. So certain times you're silent, you acquiesced, and the guy now has a grandfathered right, not over here. Kolzman. You know what kolzman means? We're going to learn the concept of a chazak of 3 years. Even if the guy had an animal for 3 years or more, which is a big chazaka, no one gave up their right to protest. Great. However, there's an exception to this. If a guy brought an animal in there, which he shouldn't have, people did not protest, but they didn't give up the right. And this guy went ahead now, and he put up a partition that's high 10 tfachim to keep his animal in a private area. And no one protested. Now, hechazik. Because people are so against having any type of petition being put up on joint owned land, their silence has a greater power. When you're makpid less, you're not.
Where's the partition get it?
That area, the right, it doesn't give them ownership. It gives them the right to keep the animal there. It gives them the right to keep the animal. And so they were moichel. Wow. Now, that there we say, once you put up, right? Once you put up a mechitza, you got your mechil. What happens if I start a bigger chutzpah? I go into your backyard, and I bring an animal in your backyard. I feel I'm and I make a mechitza in your backyard, and you were quiet for whatever reason. Because don't forget, that people do lend their space. They can do it bechinam, right? So just because I have my stuff in your backyard, it doesn't mean you're a moichel anything. That means that you gave me the shus, you borrowed it to me, you loaned it to me. Or a kirayim, or megadol tanagoyim b'chayoytze bohem, that if I put it in my neighbor's property, it will never give me right to claim any type of right, nukuda. Not only does it not give me the right to claim that I bought it, it doesn't even give me the right to claim that you gave me some sort of long-term rights. Because if a person, by having their stuff on someone else's property, would get any type of right there, no one will allow anyone to do anything on the property. And that's not the way the world can function. Will become a
squatters' rights.
Exactly. That's when you have squatters' rights, then the society has to become crueler. Because you cannot tolerate mamish, you have all these places, they only rent out a room for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And some people need to be there for 4 weeks. They're not going to rent it out for 4 because once you go for 4 weeks, they can never get rid of you. So it just creates a lot of cruelty. And as we learned yesterday, Hezekiah, more windows that are opening up into my chutzner, even if it's joined, the less privacy I will have. So I have the right to stop anyone, because you have a window, and therefore, if the guy did it without permission, I will force him to pay to close it up. Even more. Because I can't open up a window. What about opening up a door? Interestingly, I cannot open up a door if it's going to be aligned towards yours, which is the beauty that the Bilam saw in the Jewish people. However, what happens if me and you live on opposite sides of the street? We're not living in the same chutzner. And you built your house on one side. You have a door already built. I'm building my house right now over here. You can also argue, I should not be allowed to make my door directly aligned with yours. I could. Because since anyways, the Rishus Harabim people are constantly going by, so you anyways lost your privacy by your door, I'm just like another guy. Halacha Zayin, Afal Pikein, Yiftach Adam Chanus Keneged Pesach Hatzar Chaveidoi, a store opposite a chutzner. You see, by a store, people are coming and going, which is halavai, right? But that's the goal. People are coming and going the whole time. Shezeh has a kavua tamid. In other words, even though my chutzner is opened up, let's say, yakir to the street, say that more than a street where people are walking by is a store. People like congregate and they hang out there. I'm adding more. And v'zeh means the storekeeper, even worse, sits there the whole day.
Not working.
That's right. That's what he's doing. He's staring. Halachiches. Echad min hashutfim b'chatzim shalokach bayis b'chatzer acheres. So now, what's his option? Ein yochel leftoich pischoi lechatzer hashutfim shaloi. So if there is a home that opens up to the chutzner to the right, this guy already has a house to the chutzner and to the left. He has another home. So he says, I have a home. I already have rights here. I'm going to make another door for me to be able to exit my new bais into the chutzner in which I already have rishus to be there. He's not taking more ownership of the chutzner. Same guy. He's not allowed to do that. Afilu any yochel of toich pischei lechatzar hashutzim shaloi. Afilu bana ali al gabe beisai. The Rambam has a very strong halach over here. Just to know that when you have a property in a chutzner, you're not allowed to add more people there. Because the more people that are going to be using this chutzner, it's going to make walking in the chutzner slower. You're slowing everything down. You're clogging up the environment.
Having children.
So having children is not included, but we're going to speak that Rambam is very strong in renting. That if I have a house, I cannot rent it to a family that already has more. I can't do that. It's amazing. It's called the harbis diyarim. The Rambam is going to write clearly, I can add bedrooms to my house. The binyan, I'm not taking up more space. So what? That's my business. As long as it doesn't increase people that live. So here I'm doing this here. These are the words. Means that you're making the passage in the chutzit slower. The fact that there's another house, guys, opening up here is going to be more. That he could do. First of all, because when I open up, I cannot open up a new exit from the aliyah to the. But if I'm doing it through my house, that's not going to add people. It's only me. I'm not going to have another person going through my house. It's not going to be marba b'diyodim. But if I'm only adding more environments in my home, like we said, to be marba b'binyan, no problem. Not marba b'diyodim. And again, there has to be some fine line. The Rambam is very machmir here. You can have kids, but there's a certain limit here. Halacha 9. Mekan atolamed. Mekan meanings from the concept, not from the exceptions in the bottom, not from the Pesach Aliyah, from the first part of halacha ches. Listen to this. Anshe bayis acher. You're moving a new family in there, right? You're moving into your house. Anshe bayis acher. Yesh lachaveroi la'akev olav. You're bringing in too many people here. So, on my block, there's a house that's being Airbnb'd out. And they do it for people to make movies. It's not comfortable because people go there when they make it, you have a production vans and they park over there and there's a lot of people. Like it makes too busy. Even if you're just renting, but that guy, I rent it out to you. But you're very hospitable in my house. You're bringing in all of your chevra. Wow. American law, I don't think has this. Not Danny. It has this? I don't think so. If you own a house and you rent it out, it can be two old people living in the house and they can rent it out to a Chassidish family with 18 kids.
It all depends on the HOA. It's got a hot time on its own. It just can give you issues.
They cannot give you issues so quick.
Oh, really?
Even though also there's parking issues like here, no parking. When you move to your block, there was parking. Now there's no more parking. Why? There's so many people. If there's a window there, but it was small, listen, I know that you were invading my property, but I already got used to the angle. I knew what I could do. I knew that in that other corner, your window no one can see. Now that you're making the window bigger, there's a greater invasion of privacy. The Pesach katan and he sasin mimcha. I was able to hide from you while I'm doing my stuff. The Pesach God. Listen to this. If there was a big door, don't make it into two. It's amazing. Somehow, the fact that there are two doors makes it harder. That's something else, not to a chatzar. And you want to make your door wider, or and you want to make it into two. So now, ein chaveira, guys, who do you think the chaveira is? Like we said before, the guy living across the street. The guy living directly across the street. Again, the issue is that once you're living under the Reshus HaRabim, anyways, the guy has no privacy. Ein chaveira, on the other side of the street, ma'akav olav. The Ein Sarach Chleimer that the Nei Reshus HaRabim are not able to stop him because it's a Reshus HaRabim. Halacha Yud Beis. Koifim the Nei Mavoi Zeh to build either a lechi or the Koira Lamavoi. These are two solutions to allow people midrabanan. Remember to carry in the Mavoi. The Mavoi, even if it's closed from three sides, it's open on one side completely to another Reshus, to a Karmelis, to a Reshus HaRabim. So the Chachamim says that as long as you put a lechi or a koida, lechi is the pole going up, the koida is the cross beam, that will be a reminder that this is one Reshus, this is not the Reshus HaRabim. You're not going to end up carrying from the Mavui into the Reshus HaRabim and vice versa. And that's an obligation upon everyone. So it's amazing that the Rambam wrote before that it has to do with the Dvarim Shederech B'nei HaMedina L'Shtamish Boi, Halacha Dalet. Here the Rambam is going back and he's saying, no, that whatever is halachically required, the Hilcha Shabbos, everyone has to pay. Halacha Yud Gimel. Mishi yesh le Pesach b'mavoi. Ein b'nei mavoi koifen. Oisoi. Lasois deles lemavoi. So how does the mavoi work, guys? Just remember, it's a cul-de-sac. Like when I use the word cul-de-sac, forget about, there's no Pesach and there's no deles. It's completely open. There, it was case by case. Some muva'os were completely open. Some muva'os already had a Pesach. You know what a Pesach means? It was a lechem mikan, the lechem mikan, it was like a sort of Pesach. So when you walked in there, so the guy says, you know what, let's do something better. We already have the door frame. Let's put up a door. It's more private. We can close it at night. No, you cannot force. It's ruining it for me. And when you make the door, when the door will be closed, then I'm going to have to schlep it in my hands and not be able to take it in if you close the door. I don't want to do it.
You needs to reason with that.
He has to read. No, yes.
On his property.
It's a partnership. It's a partnership.
His door from his house.
So we're talking about the entrance of the mother.
Right. But the entrance is from his house to the mother. It's partially his property.
It's convenience versus security. That's a machlekes everyone has the whole time. There's always a machlekes. You're making it less convenient, you're making it more secure. The guy that says convenient, he's going to win. We mentioned there's a mavi that's open. A mavi that's open, that gave the Bnei Reshus Harabim the rights to walk through it. Listen to this. Bnei Reshus Harabim, because they need access to that. And you know when they need access, even if they don't have the right to walk through it, because that's the way of the world. When it gets too jam-packed, you have to have a corner to run into, and you're taking that away. Halacha Yudal. In other words, what's really happening over here, Danny, is there's a mavui that you had no access to. Your chatzin opened up to another mavui. The back of your chatzin is adjacent with this mavui. You simply want to make a new opening, Yakir, from your chatzin into this mavui. Again, you're doing the same thing we learned before. You're adding more usage. So you're making the usage of the mavui slower. B'nei mavui ma'akvin. Even though, guys, your chatzir goes into it, but there used to be a wall there. How did you get into your chatzir? From the other side, from the other mavui. That's it. You can't make a derech for you over here. It's going to be slower for the people that are there. There'll be another house, another chatzir. If it's a mavim, like we learned in Allah Yud Gimel, so the Bnei Reshus Harabim go squeeze in there. That's the rule of a mavim and full. Shalachet as well. There used to be a door, and someone closed off the door. We had this din, I think it was yesterday. It has to do with just closing up the door, or did you remove the door frame? Removing a door frame means that this is gone. Then you lost the right. But if you only closed it up, even if it was closed for more than 3 years. But if they destroyed the door frames, that they mamish closed it off, today would be they built drywall from both sides and they painted it over. Stam lohoid al pik habola, that when you have a door or a window, you're never supposed to fully you leave a little hole for the shading, but you left a hole for the shading. There's just a little lechel. There's no door. B'nei mavoi ma'akvino. B'chein echan b'nei mavoi shebikesh listayim pischai ulachzir lamakim acher. So what do we have over here? The guy's going back and forth. Again, this is again chatzir that's in between two mavois. You used to have a door facing one. You closed it and you opened it up in the second. You opened it up, for example, because the second was a mavim mefulish, or you got to the shus. Now you want to leave the mavim mefulish, you want to go back. When you want to close up a door, they stop you. They have the right to tell you, we don't allow you to no longer use our mavoi. The question is why? Here, Yakir, you're making it more roomy for them. Because whenever there's a tax on a mavui, that tax is divided by all of the chatzeres. If you remove your chatzer from there, then the proportional share on every chatzer will be higher. Your presence diminishes everyone's share. That's the pshat. Shema yovil mas. And if you would still be there, which is what they're demanding, so your presence is umismait michelka min hamas hakotz vel bnei hamavu. And now that you're leaving, this mavi has to give the same number, but we have one chatzer less to divide it upon. That's the only reason why they can stop you. If it won't make a difference, so then it is a sois and pischei b'chol hashiyitz.
Kibbutzniks.
Halacha, and the final halacha of this chapter, halacha tazayin, Yakir misses the kibbutz. Right, chamesh, not at all. Chamesh, chatzeres, hapsuchas lamavi she'enim mafulosh. See if you have a picture that's going to help you. No, there's a mavi she'enim mafulosh, so it's private. No one goes through and through. And the guys, when you were speaking about 5, it's one, like there's the one closest to the Rosh Hashanah. On the side of it, there's another one that's 1 away, 2 away, 3 away. You have 5 lined up. Now the question is, in the Mavui itself, is the guy that lives in the house, in the Chatzar, right near the Rosh Hashanah, does he have the right to use the whole Mavui? Not exactly. No, it's his right in the Mavui. It's a Mavi she'enim mafulish, is to get from the street into his house. Into his Chatzar. Very good. Yeah. So everyone has the right to use the outermost one, the one that's aligned with the outermost Chatzar. But the Hachitzoyna is only Mishtameshes La'atzma. The Chen Hashniya Mishtameshes La'atzma, U Mishtameshes Machitzoyna. But the Ene Mishtameshes Mashon. Comes out and says that Hapnim is, he has the most rights. The deepest one, Mishtameshes Kulam, U Mishtameshes La'atzma. Now, what are we getting to? We're getting to something about, there's a halachic consequence. Im Balna, Bal Hashniya, it's Tabak Keneged Pischoi. You're going into the Mavui, not the one closest to the Rosh Hashanah. The second guy decided in the Mavui to build a bench. Now, when you build a bench, of course, we're not speaking about building a bench ba'oifen that you cannot get through there. Of course, you can't do that. We're speaking about you building a bench and you're making it harder for the people to go further in. Who has the right to protest? Not the guy that lives on the outer one, because he has no right to begin with. Usesamai, he makes it difficult. He clogs it up. Anyone who has to go through that area to go deeper, they have the right. No, they have to walk around it. That's the whole tircha that they're making. You have to walk another another little tefach and something, so they have what to complain about. Bal Hashniyam. So guys, just like we learned, that if I own a house, even if I'm not adding the yodim, the Rambam says to make a new door into the chutzner or something that you can't do. It's more movement in the chutzner. Same thing over here. If guys, this you have to push a picture. There's a mabul. So this is your chutzner. The chutzner has one door. Can I make another door? So there'll be 2 exits from my chutzner into the mabul. Whoever is living closer to the front can stop it in the other direction. Whoever is living further in, right?
Yeah.
Let's read it inside. I think the outermost one cannot complain. Outermost one means whoever will never have to walk by that doorway. Since the outermost house only uses that piece, if there's a door further in, an additional door, doesn't disturb him. We're not speaking about adding diyodim, we're adding doors. He never goes there. Whoever is on the other end of that new door, instead of walking by 2 doors, they're walking by 3 doors, even though it's the same 2 chatzeros. They can say, I don't want to walk by 3 doors. I don't want to have to deal that when I'm walking through the mava, you have to be careful. By the driveway of 1, 2, 3, I do 2 is enough. They lose by it. Because he never walks there. He doesn't have the right to go there. Of course, if he walks there, he's not taking anyone's money up, but it's not his. He has no dominion over it. The Because she'ein loy lishtamish mamavi el nepesach hatzeder rishon alachutz. That's the consequence. And the chein adin bekula means any other modification that one, even when one has the right to argue that it's somehow adding more movement or making it more inconvenient, only people that have the halachic right of ishtamshus have the right to complain, and people of the outermost part, who anyways don't have a reshus ishtamshus, they cannot be ma'akiv. And now moving on to today's third chapter, Perek Shishi, we're going to learn about the obligations that people have towards each other, or you can even say the partnership that we have amongst each other, not bias and aliyah, we began today, not b'nei chatzeros, b'nei mavui, but people in the city. There are certain city expenditures that, same concepts that we have learning until now, that everyone has to pay for. And interestingly, in this chapter that Rambam is going to bring up the whole idea of competition. So there's going to be many halachas about what you could or cannot do, and the very big klal, Rambam, again, the Rambam many times stands alone, is that if you live in a city and you pay taxes in the city, you're going to have many more halachic rights of opening up businesses in the city. It'll be a lot to do with that, versus people that don't pay taxes, which is what, 50% of the population over here or something like that. Halachically, it gives them a lot less rights in introducing new businesses to a location. It's amazing, as we'll see inside. Perek Shishi has 14 halachas, beginning with halacha Aleph. Koyfin b'nei ha'ir zeh. To make a chayma, anything that has to do with walls around the city, anything that has to do with the lasayim, anything has to do with the beriach, the bolt, that which locks the doors. Oh, this is security issues. Now we're interested, again, what comes first? Gashmias or ruchnis, right? That's the whole word. We always give a bracha, but gashmias or ruchnis. That's a good example. There's a gashmias they can need, security, and you have to build a Beis HaKnesses. You have to buy a sefer Torah and Vim Ksuvim. People would have put ruchnis before gashmias, then the Seder would have been to buy a vase. That's not the first thing. Right? In Hilchos Malachim, we'll see that the first obligation of a melech is the safety of the people. Then he builds the Beis HaMikdash, Mashiach. That's at the end. The third Beis HaMikdash. But you have to have, that's a communal need. Having Tanakh. Interestingly, that he's writing Tanakh. B'tzibur, just to know, halachically, B'tzibur, we read the Sefer Torah that we know, and we write all of the Haftarahs are from the Nevi'im. Right? There's no, but it's not true, because you have the 5 Megillas, you have the Megillah Esther. Right, halacha base. If you decide to buy a city, understand what you're getting into. The first thing you have to do is, you bought a city, even if when you bought the city only has one highway going into it. We want for every city in Israel to grow. Look at what the Goyim want. Whatever they want is the opposite of what God wants. So everyone is putting pressure for Israel not to grow. That's because we have to grow the cities. How do you make a city grow? What makes a city more hospitable? If there's many ways to go in and out of the city. It's amazing. Chiv, you bought a city, you have to make sure that from all of the 4 directions, there should be a road going in and out. Mishum Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. More people are going to, and that's the goal. The goal of a city is for people to settle there. When you make it accessible, it becomes more attractive and more people will settle. Another din, the koifim b'nei because that zeh, last is b'nei a charetz or ben charetz. A charetz means a trench, and what they used to do is, for there to be a certain amount of safety from animals or maybe from ganavim, is that they would make these trenches, and then they would make a mini trench. So if you want to get in there, you have to go over the ben charetz and then the charetz. These were the normal security measures that they would take. Everyone is obligated to pay for these security needs. No, you don't live there. We had similar in the previous Pedic when you have a bias in this chutzit and you happen to own a bias in a chutzit where you don't live, you'll be less responsible. So what are you responsible for? Even though you don't live there, but you own there. If it is storage for water, and also amas mayim. No, it's anything that's water related. I don't care that you do not live there. Avol, other than water needs, it's amazing. Avol l'sharkol advarim. L'chaydat means shar advarim. L'chaydat means even the chayma. You don't live there. You need safety. Why do I need safety? I don't live there. Why do you need water? I have no idea, but you need water. Mayim, toida, you always need water. Then Mishab always say halakoil again. All hakoil, this is again halakoil as it says in halacha aleph. Whatever everyone is chayiv, you're chayiv to pay. Halacha dal. Don't think that the wall is costing on Brazil $4 billion. All the building in Brazil is just a gang of money. That's the klal. Even here, Mustama, just the corruption there is smarter. Why are they building here La Cienega for 18 years? There was nothing broken. That's the way you get money somehow. They got the money, so they break the things over here. So they're building a wall. So you don't say, oh, it's costing 14B, and everyone has to pay a couple of $1 million. You don't divide the money proportionally. Listen to the concept. The closer you live to the wall, the more you have to pay. Because the whole wall is for security. Who needs the most security? The guys that live closer to the wall. You could have argued the opposite, right? You could have said the guys that live closer to the wall, they are the ones that are securing the rest of the city. If they get off and come, they're on the front. They should be paid. No, you live closer to the wall, you need it more. Yakir is not so happy, which is good.
Yeah.
You have to, in other words, we're makabel.
They done with them, they're going to get closer to the farthest.
Some of them will get, some of them, the guys will hold off sub. So 100 bandits go in. By the time it comes to this end, there's only 2 bandits left. You understand? So they not equal. Meaning, that's the rule. Accept it. That's what God wants, and then we have to rewire our brains and to be grateful that we're Yidden, because without this we would not know. Now we know. Halacha. Kol hador be'ir. If you live in a place for 12 months, living means even if you're a renter, that's important. Or you own a base dira. Now, in addition, sometimes people would pay soldiers. Today would be the guards people. Anything that's related to security, the Bnei Yoir has to pay. The guy says, I'm not a Bnei Yoir. I'm only here for a couple of months. So the halacha is there's for a month, for this, 12 months. Or if you own a house. Either dear for 12 months, or if you own, you're right away al-chayiv to pay. I'll bet 1 second. Like we mentioned above, even from Yisayimim. However, there's one exception. Why? Why? To those Zionists that Rambam is writing this, the Torah protects them. I'll tell you.
They protect you.
Yeah, the Rambam is right. They say they protect you. Those statements. That's the Rambam's Avos Yisrael, not to put salt in the wound. But they don't need protection. I'm telling you, the Rambam Meruach Kachrei was seeing us laughing over here. Good verstanden. But when it comes to the fixing of the streets, even the Chachamim have to get from here to there. The Torah is shreimer, you understand? But you're getting to the supermarket, if you have an asphalt, your tires, your feet, your shichalach won't get dirty. I had this one thing, I guess, one problem, that we're building a chayv. So some places, the Seder was, you hire people and everyone pays money. They have to pay money. But if the way of building it was everyone gave their own manual labor, upon them would have that street, they're not allowed to do manual labor in public. Because of the rule, to demean themselves. Just
appreciate Chabad shluchim.
Exactly. That's the word. There was a beautiful article that was written about someone that made a criticism that the Chabad rabbi somewhere, Friday night, his nails were dirty. That's already went out in the 80s. It was in a big magnata, and the response was so beautiful. What do you think his nails was dirty from? He was setting up the table. He was mopping the floors. He was doing the work that you would not do. And it was not the meaning for him. So when you look at that, you should see the beauty of that person that said, there's nothing beneath me. I'm going to do anything that needs to get done. Gewaldig. All right. We're shluchim, exactly. All right. Halacha zayin. They're digging a river to make sure that more water, again, water is very important, like we mentioned above. Because shezois chus lahem, kedei sheyashku mimenu, so they say machar meim. Lefikach, Well, it's really, guys, you have to understand like this, that you don't take money from Yisraelim so quick. We have to verbalize. You only get to take the money because they benefit. What happens if you made the effort, and it could happen, and no benefit came? You have to give back to them what you took. It's amazing. And I want you to know something. What about other people? Again, I want to go. We mentioned this already today, the second time now, Mechila. There's many areas in halacha where we say people are moichel. Yisraelim don't have the ability to be moichel. They're not doing anything. There's an apotropos doing for them. Once I'm doing something on behalf of you, I can only represent you for your benefit. I cannot represent you to your detriment. Now we begin with competition. Before competition. Certain businesses give a headache. All people in a movie can say, I don't want, not for a chayot, a tailor. Tailor is a place where many people are going to come and go, right? A bursi has an issue. Anyone who tans leather, there's a very bad odor. It's not about the odor. Any type of craftsman, craftsman means that I'm coming to deliver my item, you're going to fix it, I'm going to come pick it up. But if there is one guy doing that and people did not protest against that practice, so no, it's amazing.
What's the problem with the chayat again?
It's you don't want the movement. You don't want. We learned in the previous chapter that it's going to make the other people going there. It's going to make it more filled with people. But what's amazing over here is that once this mavui allowed for anyone there to open up a store doing servicing, you can say, okay, they only allowed one. No, once they allowed, then you can have more traffic.
Even if it's the same.
Yeah. If there's already a merchatz means that the merchatz brings in people, or a store, or a mill. So you would say that people are allowed for one. Guys, don't allow the one. See, once you give the opening, you're done. Or he builds a tochin acheres, no longer. Now, 1 second. There's many issues here. First issue is more traffic. No. Now, there's another issue, competition. That's a competition. So the rule is, and that's again, this is Shitas, guys. Shitas Alam is, if you live in the same city and you pay taxes, that's the two things. You live in the city and you pay taxes, you have the right to open up a store anywhere you want. The only reason why you would not have right is that you're bringing in traffic to a place where people say we don't want that traffic. So if there's one guy already in this movie with a merchetz, that means they were moichel on the traffic. So you can open another one. There's more, it doesn't matter. 1, 2, same thing. Competition, that's no competition. Doesn't even live there. Why? Yesh beneim is the nechnasim v'yotzim. Paying tax and living in the city is the competition. That's the rule over here. Avol gard b'medina acheres. If you live in another medina, doesn't mean a country. Medina means a city. Shaba lasois chanus b'tzad chanus shel zeh berchon. So the issue is not making more traffic. Yesh lo hem lemonoi. But it's ve'im hoyim noisin menas hamelach. I take it back. It's not both. It's not about. I take back. It's not about living in the city. It's about paying tax. It's all about paying taxes. If you pay taxes, any yochel. And obviously, we're not speaking about sales taxes. Everyone pays sales taxes wherever you are. Halacha tes. Roichlan hamachzidin ba'yoros. Roichlan is a perfumer. So ein b'nei ayoros yichalom la'akvon. And that's a competition. So we just said, if you don't pay taxes in the city, I cannot bring a business into the city if I'm not paying taxes. A roichel by default doesn't live there. So what about competition? We don't give competition, but that's an exception, only for perfumers. The end of Kedushin, right? The oi and the toiv. Something special about perfumers. Shetakonas ezrihi sheyu machazin kedei sheyu b'samim mitzoyin l'nais Yisrael. It's very important perfume, especially if it's in the gray market, guys. It's a win-win.
Women gotta smell good.
Yeah,
as he says.
Mitzuyas. Avol einam koivin makim v'yoshim sham. But for them to open up a perfumery is always like they can travel.
Even in Beverly Hills.
Even in Beverly Hills.
Even though they're
Now,
not.
element does video. Now they have to get reshus. But 1 second, ve'im Talmud Chachamu.
No.
Then if you're the Talmud Chacham kaveh b'chol makom sheyirtzeh. Because travel. See, when you have a store, that's if you have the right worker, you can sit and learn the whole day. Or if you have a store without a worker, but business is not good the way it is right now, you can also sit and learn the whole day. No one is coming into your store. Big deal. You take a little break, which you're going to take anyway. Halacha yud. How great is that? Now, guys, we'll learn something. See, there's something unique about perfume. It's a standalone halacha. Now we're speaking about any person. A soichen means you don't have a store. You buy here and you sell there. A peddler is very good. So the din is b'neihu in ma'akin aleim. That's guys. That's why ma'akif, because you're competing, and if you don't pay local taxes, you cannot do it. But then there's exceptions because many cities are built in a way that you have big markets. You coming from wherever selling biyoy mashuk in the shuk ain't moinonoisam. It has to be these two things. It's the day for the shuk, and in the then no one can complain about competition. But even though you're there, biyoy mashuk, you cannot go from door to door. The roichel, the perfumer, goes from door to door if he wants. And there we go. Here you have to the legal loopholes. If this soicher owes money to people in the city, you know what he's claiming? I can only pay my debt to the guys that live in this city if I do business. So then moichrin kedei parnasasan, even not yoy mashuk. So in other words, I don't want to use it in a negative way, but I'm saying it means if a person wants to do business in the city, he gets someone from the city to lend the money.
That's his workaround.
And that's his workaround for that amount. Okay, halacha yudal. Echon the name mavoi she'enam a foolish, which is as we learned, that's where there's a greater concern of I don't want to have new people coming here. He wants to become a reifa, which is a need. You need to have doctors. An uman means a bloodletter, not a craftsman. A gardi is a weaver. Interesting, these ones. Oi, malamet tanoik is of not Yidden. It's very important. So, why here? Again, the issue is not about competition. He's the first guy opening it up. You can't rent it to anyone because that guy has no right to be here. You can't rent it to a reifa, not to an uman, not to a bloodletter, not to a gardi. There's a chiddush, these are all things that there is a benefit. It's good also to have a doctor in your neighborhood. It's good to have a weaver, something rips, you get it fixed. It's good to have someone who knows how to write documents. We're not speaking about a stam. We're speaking about, but still you cannot do it. We'll see the Rambam spills out about teaching Torah clearly, the other side, in the positive. Allah, you'd base. Chanois, Shebachatz, the store that's already there. So they can stop you using it as a retail store. I don't have the right to tell you what to do in your house. So the guy says, no, I'm only going to use it, for my business. I'll do my work in there. If you're not selling to the public there, you're not bringing in traffic, then you can do whatever you want. Now, by the way, this is a good taina if you want to introduce something. We learned this today. But once you brought that in there and people did not protest before, then it sounds like they can always stop you from selling retail. But once you already are there, you're grandfathered in, so the noise that you make, here, right in our society, there are laws. What's the meaning of what's the din hamadina here? That there's a certain time and a certain decibel, and after that time PM, you can't make a certain amount of noise. 10 p.m. No, what could you do? You can do it inside your house. No one can stop you. Beautiful. You walk in Yerushalayim, you hear from 8 Chedorim, it's mamash Gan Eden.
Not in Beverlywood. You can't have a gun in your house. Your neighbor might.
Let's be done.
No, das Balabatan happens. That's later. Here you go. Halacha Yugim. Mi sheyesh loy boy. I want to say that when we learned many times that you have to follow the minig, I think not by title. Something unique about teaching Torah. So we're speaking about a person, as we learned in the previous segment, that it can be someone owns a house. Remember that? And the boy belongs to the original owner. He already paid the derech. Just because I have something in your house and I paid for you to the right of getting there, or I didn't have to pay, we learned all that before, it doesn't mean I can go there whenever I want. Just because I have something in your house that I have the legal right to go to, I have restrictions on me when I can do it by default. Only nichnas b'shah shederech v'niyadam nechnasim v'yoytz, and the yoytz are only b'shah shederech v'niyadam v'yoytz. So if I own a boy, I can't claim, well, I want my animal to drink. So just move your sofa to the side and I'm going to very gently walk in with my back. I cannot do that. If it's in your house, that was when I bought the right of way to get there, it doesn't give me a carte blanche. Both are entitled to make a pachsachas ala boy. It's now that we mentioned, the boy belongs to me, guys, the house belongs to you. Even if I need to, I already bought the derech. That's resolved. Since I don't have hefkerveld, I have a boy. I can go whenever I want. You and I together can create some sort of enclosure on this board that can only be opened by two locks, by two keys. Each one preventing the other one to open it without them being there. Bal haboid says water. Lishmaras meimov. You can say, why should the other guy? In other words, I already don't have the shoes. Now that I don't have the shoes, me knowing that even if I were to enter, I cannot get there. I cannot get
no excuse to be in the
sorry, that person cannot find. Well, I'm just going to get my gunavim yim toko. Danny see him, he loves it. Yeah, no, it's tighter. Right. No. Final law yudalid. A garden within a garden, and it was but he has the right to get there. Problem is that my path to get there goes through your garden. Just because I bought the right, it doesn't mean I can go whenever I want with whoever I want. Only nichnas b'shah, and only the yoytze b'shah. That means if I stayed within my garden after sunset, sleep there. I don't have the right to go through. And another din, I have stuff that are growing in there. When I made up with you, the gan hachitzain, and I bought my derech, I don't have the right to bring merchants in there. I want to sell my merchandise. Okay, I have to schlep my stuff out there. You don't want to have people walking and seeing what's going on in your gun. No, it's the derech that I have, that I bought, even when I bought it, is only for me to walk to there. Cannot use it for any other purpose. And the final, when there's a path doesn't mean that land belongs to me. So there's Reuven and Shimon. Reuven owns the inner. And he bought a derech from Shimon. Reuven doesn't own the derech. Reuven has the right to walk on the derech. What happens if Shimon wants to make use of the derech? And he wants to plan things which will make Reuven's going and coming harder. It won't be so geschmack just to walk. Shimon has the right to do it. He's not disabling him. He's only difficulting him for him. The land belongs to the outer God. That's the last halacha. Making it more difficult is not a problem. Now, however, what happens? I already bought my derech, but my derech goes through your gun. You know what we both agree to? It would be better. Let's move the derech from going through your gun. Let's move the derech to the edge of the gun. So even when I walk in there, I'm invading a lot less of your privacy. If we move the derech, it gives me a bit more right because it's less intrusive.
So what does it mean, a bit more right?
First of all, it's not only during the time that derech b'nei adam to go in there. I can go there 24/7. Number two, Yakir, umachnis l'toichet hagonim. Because again, no one is looking at your stuff. There's no ayin hara. They're going through the side. 1 second, but it's not hefkervel completely. But for me to use that for any purpose other than to go into the gun, that's still not allowed. Another thing, It was in the beginning of Allah Yudalid. Just because I bought the derech, I'm the inner guy. You, the outer guy, can plan. Not over here. The fact that we both agreed to move it to the side, that's for these reasons. Now, both of them have more rights. So each one can stop the other. Gewaldig, to be continued.